Conversations with the Mind podcast, where we explore consciousness through conversations with interesting people. Our mission is to engage the collective mind piece by piece to bring greater clarity of mind to our listeners locally and across the planet, and to contribute to broaden the shared experiential knowledge and wisdom of existence. Hey YouTube. Alright folks, welcome back to Conversations with the Mind. I'm your host as always, Shane Lemaster, and today we're here for episode 58. Very special guest, Rosie de la Fuente. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Can you hear it okay?
Yeah, I can hear it just fine.
Okay, maybe just get like a little bit closer.
Okay.
And you can kind of talk into it
there.
from the side a little bit too. You should be getting used to using mics and stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is definitely becoming something that's just like super fun, although, cause like, I don't know, like I did like theater and stuff, like also, and then also like choir, and so I've always been using mics. I feel like I'm pretty used to it. I like it though.
Yeah, it's something I'm still getting used to, like being able to have this here without being right in between us, you know, and paying attention to the sound that I'm hearing in my headphones, because I notice like sometimes those announcers at MMA fights or at Jiu-Jitsu matches or whatever, they think that they are being clear in the mic, but then like the audience is like, what the hell are you saying? Like it's either too loud or too soft. You really have to have that awareness, and it's something that I'm working on.
Oh no, I feel like you're doing pretty good.
Oh, thanks. So the first question is the same question I ask everybody, and that is, what does the phrase "conversations with the mind" mean to you?
Conversations with the mind. I feel like I go towards like a more mental health type thing, just figuring out like how to process things, or like bringing words to it. I don't know, like how you're feeling. I feel like that's what I think of when I hear the word or sentence, conversations with the mind. So
sort of like there's this internal piece to where there's like this mental chatter going on, a lot of different voices maybe trying to have their influence, but then there's also the second component, which is like how do you translate that into like verbally, like how do you speak that? How do you put words to some of these things that are really hard to put words to?
I feel like that's how I see art. Think of it, what I think of it.
Yeah, and you work with, you're a paraprofessional working with, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe at-risk youth. So still, you know, fairly highly functioning, maybe with some issues in their family systems or their upbringing, and some conduct and behavioral issues. I too have some experience. That's actually where I met Callie. We were both working at an inpatient treatment facility for youth girls that were either foster kids or kids that had been wrapped up in the legal system and then sent away because their parents didn't know how to take care of them, and which I think is totally unfair to the kids. You know, parents just kind of unload the responsibility onto teachers and people like you to raise their kids or to teach them these things. So I think it's kind of cool that we have that link, but I'd like to hear from you, like, because you work with these kids and you get a first-hand view of youth and adolescents working with their own conversations in their own minds, like trying to figure out who they are and their place in the world, and really struggling with that.
And too, like, I have a lot of like even foster kids that go to our school because it's an alternative school, and like just it's like sad to say, but like a lot of the kids there, like they have dealt with like they were kicked out of their schools because of behavioral reasons or like grades or anything like that. But in a lot of times the kids that are like failing school are the ones that like are gone through like the foster system or like have like broken homes, and like it has really been like a mission of mine to be like that adult figure in like teenagers' lives. I even do like volunteer work with, I don't know if you've ever heard of like Young Life, and so I do volunteer work with Young Life, and I've been doing that for like 3 years now, and so I'm like working with kids like in school and out of school, and it's just like it's become like my life, and I know that I've always that I just want to continue to work with like adolescents and like that are struggling and like don't have that adult figure in their lives, that they can like have as a role model, or like be just like someone that they can rely on. Like, hey, I like need a ride to this place, like can you like come and get me? And I'll be like, yeah, I'll get you.
Yeah, I mean, just having that stable support is so important, because like you said, a lot of them come from broken homes where that support is not a part of their system. I'm just going to adjust this real quick. I'm going to turn this towards you a little bit. I think that should work a little bit better. Yeah, and how did you get interested in doing this work in the first place? Like, were you did you come from an experience like that, or like how did you get to that?
My parents, my mom was like a teen mom, and my dad, like I'm originally from Indio, California. There's a lot of gang violence there, and both my parents were involved in gangs, and
wow.
like a lot of my family was involved with gangs. Like
in California?
Yeah, in California.
Can you tell us what gangs or no?
I don't think I'd be able to say the names. I know they're all like Southside or something, okay. But
have you talked to them about it?
I've talked to them a bit about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like if you met my mom, you could not picture her being in a gang at all. Like, the sweetest woman like ever. Like, always wants to feed people, always wants to take care of people. Like, they really made it their mission to like raise us differently. And so that has been something really awesome. But like, yeah, just like picking up from their background, like they had it rough. Like, they had it really rough. Like, my grandma was an immigrant, and she came to America illegally, actually. She's a citizen now. Don't nobody try to come for my grandma.
Where'd she come from?
Mexico, Michoacan. And so she came with her husband, and like she ended up having all of her kids here. I mean, like, there were like times where like my grandfather would like drive her over the border to like go have their children there, because like whatever, like it's cheaper. And so that was a struggle. Because of that, my mom was born in a car, because they were on their way to Mexico but didn't make it.
Oh no.
Yeah, and so she was born in a car. But yeah, so they had it really rough. My grandfather ended up leaving my grandma, and so she ended up raising my mom and her 4 other siblings all by herself.
That's amazing.
Like, she worked like all day every day, like trying to support them. And like, my mom tells us that she was just like, we were stinkers, like we sucked, like we did not treat her right. And like, she still like always provided like food on the table. Like, we never went hungry. And like, if we ever needed something, like she would like make sure that like they had it, you know. And so no, she's like an amazing woman. Like, she's had a crazy story. Crazy.
That sounds amazing. And you know, I can see the timeline unfolding. Like, your grandma being this immigrant woman, very strong, having 5 kids, raising them on her own, makes me think. I'm not a parent myself, but it makes me think like parents these days don't have it nearly as hard most of the time.
No.
But your own parents, your mom, she comes from a broken home because your grandfather left your mom. And so just hearing these stories from your mom about like, this is, I was raised by my mom, and my dad wasn't around, and things, that's had some sort of big deep impact on you to go and pursue this kind of work. Yeah,
definitely. I just like, I never want someone to feel like they can never rely on someone, like they have no one, And
I think there's so many people out there that feel that way.
Yeah.
Or that they can only rely on themselves because they've been hurt so many times by others or let down.
But like, yeah, and like even too, like I moved here to Colorado, and like halfway through my like junior year of high school, and so like I came with all of my family. And when I came here, I felt like I was super just alone, and like it sucks to feel alone. It sucks to feel like you can't really like rely on anybody. And like too though, like all of what I was feeling at that time, I felt like I couldn't tell my parents, because like I didn't want them to think I like that they made a bad decision for bringing us over here. Like I'm like the second oldest of like 6.
Wow.
So yeah,
big families.
Big family. I have 5 other siblings, and I'm the second oldest, and it was just like, I have to be okay. Like I have to make sure that I'm okay. So not being able to like go to my parents, but then ended up finding this woman later on, and I was able to share all of my hurt to her, you know, and like she became like a significant figure in my life.
Who was this woman?
Her name's Krista, and she was my Young Life leader, and that's how I got into Young Life.
Nice.
And
so is that like a youth group?
Mm-hmm. Well, not really a youth group. It's like not associated with any church or anything. Like it's a worldwide organization, and it is Christian based. But like they like go to the schools, and they like want themselves to be known so that these kids will like come and like they can like share a message with them and like just let them know that they have someone. And so that's how I got into Young Life, because of her, because I was like, I want to be that person to someone else during my age when I was feeling alone and I was feeling like I couldn't share with anybody.
It almost sounds like a big brother, big sister program, or like not quite like a boys and girls club, because kids go to those places, but they do get mentorship at those places. Yeah, that's really cool. So this woman she was a leader in your eyes, someone that you looked up to, and then you just kind of attached yourself to her, and she taught you a lot of things. Yeah, that's really cool. What about your dad?
Oh, my dad, him, like, he had both of his parents growing up. Like, my dad, like, it's crazy, too. Like, so, like, my parents have always been together. Like, all of my siblings are all from them. And I find that a lot of people always think that's crazy. Like,
it is. It's rare these days.
Yeah, my mom was a teen mom, and so, like, there was a period where they weren't together, and then they ended up finding each other again. And, like, and this was, like, through, like, she started going to church, and then, like, he, like, followed her. And, like, so they, like, ended up, like, getting, like, married, like, a year later, almost a year later. And, like, they had me, but, like, it was just, like, crazy from, like, they were living totally different lives. And then once they, like, found the church, and I think that's why, like, my relationship with the Lord is something so significant. Like, they ended up finding the Lord, and they changed their lives completely, like, from being in a gang, from disrespecting, like, my mom, like, she just, yeah, she tells me that she wasn't very good to her mom when she was younger, but, like, my grandma became, like, also a mom to my older sister during that time. So, like,
because your mom was so young.
She was 15 years old.
Wow. It's, I mean, you say they're leading two separate lives, and you're right, but they're kind of leading similar lives separately, right?
Yeah.
So they're both participating in gangs, they're both kind of lost as youth, and then they both find the church, and that takes them out of that lifestyle, gives them this new kind of, like, foundation where they might have been lost before. And it, you know, it's really cool that you, as a product of those two, you know, have decided that, you know, the church and spirituality and religion is part of the reason why you came to be, right? Because they found each other through that. And so you're kind of like this spiritual child, you know, and you know, it makes sense. You're like, you know, I need to connect with that. You know, that's an important part of who you are and part of your identity before you were even a person.
Yeah.
That's really crazy. That's awesome.
And so, like, it's just been, like, they, like, changed everything, and then, like, had all of us. So, like, I can't remember where I left off. Like, I led up to this, like, telling you how my parents ended up finding the Lord, but they had all of us. They were always together. Oh, my dad. I was talking about my dad. My dad, he was raised by both of his parents, and, like, my mom says she didn't really like my grandpa, and yeah, I think she just always says he was like a mean man. Like, and I don't know the mean side of him, because all I ever knew about my grandpa was that he was so sweet to me, you know. And so, but, like, I just know that my dad, like, they all were, like, super, like, machismo. I don't know if you know what that means. Like, just very, like, they had to be manly, had to be strong.
Was that part of his family culture or the gang culture?
Or both, yeah. I'd say. Because, I mean, too, like, there's this, like, really, like, Chicano, like, culture that, like, comes in where men have to act a certain way, you know? And so, like, very, like, tough. Like, my dad, I've probably only seen him cry, like, twice and that's only because like when his dad died, and like when his like cousin who was like his brother, and then his never mind, like he's had like a couple of significant deaths, so like whenever someone died, that's when it was okay to cry, but like never have I seen him cry otherwise. And like, but he just says that like he like just like he had the mindset that he needed to rule his community, like he was gonna rule this and like his neighborhood, and like he'll eventually start ruling everything else, you know, like he says it's stupid now that he thought he could even do that, you know,
like having control over
people. And like, or like, and it really is like in the gang community, like you have to like, they want to build, like the whole neighborhood is involved in it. Even if you're not a member yourself, like the families in there are giving, you know, Christmas gifts by the gang members, you know, just for, you know, stashing guns or money for them in their house. And there is a hierarchy and an authority system. You know, the gang communities are really interesting. I worked as a therapist in the jail here in Fort Collins, and really got to work closely with gang members from Greeley and Fort Collins and Loveland. And I know these gangs out here are nothing like California, but at the same time, I got a first-hand introduction from the members themselves into like what the culture is, and it really is. It's like a family. Within the gang, there's very little tolerance for like violence against other gang members, unless it's like, you know, the leaders like, you guys need to hash this out, so fight, you know. But you know, they take care of each other, and it's like a very loving community until you get to the border, right? The border of your gang's territory, and then it becomes you know, just like any other difference between cultures. You know, there's war, there's fighting, there's death, there's violence. You know, a lot of people kind of want to separate gangs into this whole other category and like punish gangs for what they're doing, but you know, it's the same exact thing that like down in the South, like white culture has, for a lot of people, still has like this barrier between white culture and any other race, right? And as soon as you go outside that community, then there's racism and bigotry and, you know, really evil stuff, and they're doing the same thing that the gangs are. You know, they're you know, bonding with their own people, but leaving themselves closed off to others too. Yeah, I just found it fascinating, the gang culture, that there's a lot of strengths that people gain from gang culture, and it makes sense why you'd want to stay in it once you're in it. It's not just something that you go in and go out of. You know, a lot of gangs won't even let you do that. And like he too has like told me some like gruesome stories, which I probably can't share. He told me specifically, don't be sharing this to anybody else. But like just gruesome stories of like fights and stuff like that, like on just like these guys like showed up and like threw something in their yard, and then they fought him. Like it was just like, he really was just like, we have to be like the most powerful, like we have to rule. And so, but like totally, like my dad too is very sweet man, like, and also just like funny, like he will make friends with like anybody, like he's so like, I can't even imagine how he was back then. But no, like,
so do you attribute most of the, I mean, you hear these stories from them and you're like, this doesn't even sound like you, right? And then you see them now and your experience with them. Do you attribute most of that to their experience through spirituality, or have they told you that like that was the turning point in their life, that's what got them to change?
Definitely, that's what they told me. Like it was just like, my mom, she says like it was like something like turned on, like finally, like the way that she was living was like not okay, and then was just like, and I just like knew that like this is not the right way to live, and so like just completely changed the way she was, and not was, but like went about like with people, and just like behaviors that weren't necessarily like acceptable, but yeah, and like my dad too, definitely. But
I think that was the biggest thing in my own change process was finding spirituality, finding some sort of direction, some understanding of like, what is this whole thing about? You know, in my teens, you know, I was a high achiever. I was one of the top students in all my schools and things, but I came from a broken home too. You know, my dad left me when I was 1.5, and left my brother and I and my mom, and we were raised by my mom, so we had a couple stepdads along the way. And there was abuse and all these things from the stepdads sometimes. And so I came from a broken home. I was raised by a single mother who was dealing with her own alcoholism and trauma from her childhood and stuff. And I was still able to thrive. But then, you know, in my teen years, because I was so lost, I didn't have any sense of spirituality. You know, I got too deep into alcohol and hard drugs and things, and then really got lost. And today, though, I'm so grateful for the path that my life took me down, and all the heartache and trauma and the terrible things I did to myself and the terrible things I did to other people were all part of getting me to where I am now, to a place where, you know, when I got sober, it was a life or death thing for me. Like, if I would have kept doing what I was going to do, I was going to kill myself or kill someone else. And I couldn't have that. So it was at that bottom point when I was finally ready and open enough to be able to look into something. And it was a slow process at first, but I started looking into all the world religions. I took a bunch of classes in college on Eastern mysticism and shamanism and Western religion and Asian religions, and just trying to like figure out, you know, what is everyone thinking about, you know, when we talk about souls and living and dying and stuff like that. And I stumbled across Buddhism, and as soon as I started reading the Buddhist texts, everything just made sense, you know. And that's how it often happens for most people, is they're lost and they start a search, a spiritual journey of some sort, and you come across challenges and you overcome those challenges, but along the way you find something that just clicks, and then everything makes sense after that, or it makes a lot more sense. It sounds like that's what happened to your mom, right? She was lost and then found the church and it just clicked. And then once that click happens, that's the call to action, right? And you have a choice. You can either follow it and find eternal bliss in, you know, I don't know about you, but for me, spirituality is like, gives me that. Or you can ignore the call and keep doing what you're doing, and then who knows where you're going to end up.
It provides a wholeness. Like, even my dad, like, his, like, with him, with drinking too, like, he gave it up like cold turkey, which is crazy. Like his brothers, like, they'll, right when they wake up, they'll drink a can of beer, and, like, we'll continue to do that throughout the whole day, like, and it just, like, it's nothing. Like, then they'll be kind of, like, just wasted at the end of the night and, like, pass out. So that was something that was, like, also serious with them, but, like, he gave it up, like, like, just because he was just like, I want to be different also. But no, like, that has been something definitely, like, I just, like, admire about them, like, that, like, once they noticed all of this, you know, they decided to completely change their lives, like, and I'm just grateful that I, like, grew up with it, you know, like, that I...
So did they, like, take you to church and make you go to Sunday school? Okay, so it was part of your routine growing up. Okay.
And, like, and it's crazy, because now, I mean, like, I feel like I don't, like, really match up with all the things that I originally learned when growing up in the church. Like, I feel like I've made it my, like, own, and, like, because there was a period of time where I was struggling with my faith, and was just like, is this even real? Like, if... like, in all of this, and, like, ended up having to find my own, like, way in all of it, and, like, I've just, like, I treat it as a relationship. I don't like to call it a religion, like, even...
Well, before we get into that, and I wrote that down because it's something I definitely want to talk to you about, but talk about that struggle first, because I think a lot of people out there listening are, like, they hear us, and they want what we have, you know, but they don't know how to go out and start getting it, or who do I talk to, where do I go, what books do I read? how do I meditate, all these things, how do I even pray?
Yeah.
So when you were younger and you're it's just part of your normal routine, going to church, learning these things, and then you get to an age where you start to question it, and you're like, these don't necessarily line up exactly how they're being taught. Talk about that struggle, that challenge at that time in your life, and how did you switch out of the mode of being told what to believe into the mode of like, okay, now I have this information, you've all told me, I'm going to go out and I'm going to ask some different questions.
Like, really, like, when I was like doubting everything, it was like, I was just like, man, like, this all sounds like kind of like culty, like.
No, totally. That's what turned me off of it too.
And so like there was just that, and I was just like, is this even like real? Like, what is happening? Like, is this a ploy for like people making money? Is this just like just something to like control the masses or whatever? And it was just really like, when I was like going through this by myself, like, it's like the Bible for me growing up was like, this was a history book, you know? And so like I went into my history book, I went into the Bible, and was just like, I wanted to read, like I wanted to like see what is in here, you know? And like even too, like when going into prayer or like speaking with God, like it's just, I feel like this overwhelming sensation whenever like I'm praying, or like there will be specific times where like something happens and like I just feel a presence, and it's just like, who else could that be, or what else could that be besides him, you know? And like even too with just like even healing, like I'll like have this like pain, and then like someone will just be like, hey, can I pray for you? I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And like I just remembered like this one thing that was so significant for me. I had like a headache, and like was just like, and when my headaches go off, like I have like borderline like migraines, and so like in the morning, like I'll get it and it won't go away till the next day. And so she was just like, hey, can I pray for you, like over this? I was like, yeah, sure, you know, like I don't know what that'll do, you know. Like I was also very just like kind of like skeptical about like healings and stuff, you know. And like she just like put her hand on my head where it hurt and like prayed for me, and like it was gone like that. And like that was something so crazy to me, because like even painkillers or anything like that would not take it away. Like it would still like keep going on through the rest of the day. And so that is also just like a sign for me that was just like, hey, you know, like this is something that's like real. And
that's so powerful.
Yeah,
to be able to, I mean, you're sitting here reading the Bible, right? And it's like a history book, and you're not feeling necessarily like connected to it. You're just like, okay, this happened, and then I've read parts of the Bible too, and they talk about miracles, right? And healings and things that happen like that. And when you're reading it and analyzing it, right? If you're just reading it with blind faith, you're like, oh yeah, that totally happened, you know. But if you're reading it with a critical mind, and you're analyzing it and like, okay, is this just a story trying to teach us a lesson, or did this actually happen like this? You know, it made me skeptical when I started, you know, water to wine and things like that, right? These miracle healings, it's like, that can't happen. But then, like you said, when it does actually happen to you, and you learn from that experience, like, holy shit, this is possible. Then you go back to the text and you're like, okay, now this makes a little more sense. Yeah, totally. So it's the experience itself that really helped you get unstuck in that moment. That's cool.
And that's like hard too, because like I know a lot of people are like, you can't ask for signs, or like,
no, you just have to be able to pay attention to it.
And like that's where like all the faith comes in. Like it's something like you have to believe and not see, like without seeing, you know. And that's something also just very hard, you know, like how can this even be real without like any physical proof, or like, why isn't he like telling me in my head like, yeah, I'm real.
Maybe he is, but just in your own voice.
Yeah.
Right?
And so that was a lot too, to like find out the way that God speaks to me, you know, and like it's not necessarily in like, I'm not gonna hear this deep voice in my head that's just like, or him like opening up through the skies and being like, hey,
take a left here.
Yep. And so like just finding those things like, hey, there was a reason why you couldn't do this, like there was a reason why I stopped you from doing that, because like I needed you here, or like just like I'll see the message to it later on, you know, on whatever might happen throughout the day. Like I just remember this like thing, like Young Life tried to get me on staff, and like I was just like not ready for it. And I didn't know I wasn't ready for it at the time. Like I was just like, yeah, I want to do this, yeah, like I want to do this for a job and everything. And it was just like God had put it in place that I was not ready for that, because right after that I was going through like my whole struggling with my own faith, and like how could I be in this organization and like lead kids to the Lord when I'm not sure if I even believe in the Lord myself. And so like there was like a reason
you had to get there first.
Yeah, and it was really just like the Lord was just like, no, you can't do this at this time. And like at the time it felt so like I was so guilty, because like it's a nonprofit, so like you're raising like your income and all this, and like there was just like things not working out. And like even my like Krista, who was like the one that first led me to Young Life, she ended up going on a sabbatical, and so like I literally had no one there, and it was just like, how is anyone supposed to like help me out through this? And there was a reason why I wasn't having any help at that time, because I wasn't supposed to do it, you know. And that was something I felt so guilty of for a while, and like even too like had this mindset that I was someone who gave up on things, you know.
So you had self-imposed guilt because you felt like you gave up on yourself. Crazy.
And so like it really was just like, it made me believe that I was just someone who gave up on everything.
Yeah.
And that was just like crazy for me, because never have I been someone who gave up. Like I was always trying and trying and trying for everything, like, and I made that my identity, you know. And that was something like really hard to like even just let go of, you know.
Yeah, with that, I mean, faith is such an interesting word, and I think in our culture it turns a lot of people off to hear the word God or to hear the word faith, because of a lot of the negative things that have been attributed to it, like you said, like corruption and power and mind control and all these things. To me, I used to be repelled by that word too. But to me these days, I like to redefine words with my own definitions, whatever makes more sense to me and makes me feel good about the word.
Yeah.
So like the word God, I've redefined for myself to match my own belief systems around Buddhism and the natural order and cycles and interconnectedness of everything and stuff like that. And, the word faith for me has that aspect of letting go to the outcome, right? Just having faith that everything's going to be okay, that everything out there that happens to us is for our benefit, right? How hard is it to believe that, especially when like you get fired or you go through a breakup and you're like, how can this be for my benefit? But I find that the more I let go and the more I realize I know very little of what the universe's plan is for me, the easier it is to have that faith. And the more I just let go, the more things turn out okay. The less stressed I am about things, the less I'm trying to control things and just letting things be the way they are, as difficult as that could be sometimes. And I really like how you talked about the signs, because it's not about creating signs or asking for signs. The universe, God, whatever you call it, is going to give you signs, whether you want it or not. But the important piece is just making sure and training yourself to be open to recognizing them, right? Like I might get a sign from my higher power when I'm out on a walk with the dogs, just by myself, and I see a butterfly land on a rose, and then I go over and smell the rose, and I'm just taken, you know, I close my eyes and I just smell this amazing smell, and it brings up all these memories and connections in my mind, and I get these wonderful thoughts of bliss. You know, that is my higher power communicating to me through these experiences, you know, and that is a sign if I'm open to recognizing it like that. Or I could just be like, oh, it's a stupid butterfly, and keep walking, right? So it's all about training yourself to see the signs. Yeah, there's a, you know, the thing you brought up with your nonprofit work was reminding me of my pursuit to get into a PhD program. So right after I finished my master's, I started applying for PhD programs, and I was super motivated. I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Nothing's going to stop me. This is what I'm going to do. And I applied to a bunch of different schools and got into some, but not the ones I wanted to or the ones that I could afford. And so for the next 4 years, it was cycles of applying and getting rejected and it just not working out. And I'm like, what is going on? Why is this not happening for me? And then this year I finally got in, you know, in my 5th attempt. And as I look back on it, I'm not bitter that I didn't get in those first few years, but I realize now, I didn't realize in the moment, but I realize now in hindsight, like, I wasn't ready. I was motivated, I had the energy, but I was not mature enough in my thinking. There were still a lot of things I had to learn, and there were a lot of people that I had to help on the way to becoming who I am today. So now, in my program, I have a lot more life experience that I can share with my classmates and my teachers and put into my own research because I was rejected those first 4 years, you know. So you're right, having faith that eventually it's going to be okay, even if it doesn't feel like it right now, you know, that's a huge important thing.
Yeah. And like even too, like, I mean, like, I told you that like I got in a car accident and like someone rear-ended me, and like just Friday, like I dropped my phone and like it got smashed by a door and now it doesn't work. And like I feel like it's just one thing after the other right now, and like all I can think is just like, God, what is this supposed to be for? Like, why is all this happening right now? And so right now I'm just like trying to be like so open to like what the purpose of this is, if there's even any purpose. But like,
there's always a purpose.
There's always a purpose.
But there's a quote I like to tell myself, that the universe has no obligation to tell us what its plan is.
Yeah.
So we may never know why your phone broke. We may never know how it fits in with the big scheme of things working out for you. But you can have faith that that was part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, I mean, I've noticed now that I'm like such a like safer driver. Like, even though the car accident wasn't my fault, like being aware of people around me and like their actions or like what they might be doing, like I've just been like super cautious of it. And like, I mean, I might be overcautious like right now, like still a little bit nervous on the road, but like I'm just like, I am like gonna be the safest driver out there. Like I do not want this to be like something that happens like again. And like that's one thing that keeps popping up in my mind. It's just like, this could happen like anytime. This could like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm a safe driver, you know. But I don't want to be the cause of someone else's like pain or the cause of someone else's like anxiety or stress or like even like life. So I'm just like, I'm gonna be a safe driver. Like, I'm not gonna allow this to happen. Like,
because of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on one hand, you're recognizing anything could happen at any moment. You know, I could be hit by a drunk driver even if I'm being super safe. But I can't just wallow in that and worry about that all day long, right? Or else I'm never going to get in the car.
Yeah.
So accepting that anything can happen at any moment, but also doing your part to make sure that, you know, you don't do harm to others. That's all we can really do in this life anyway. We can't control others' behavior, but we have that power to at least do that with ourselves in most circumstances.
And like, just like even too while I was driving here, like so many people were on their phones. Like, I like look in my rearview mirror and they're like looking down and they have like they're on their phone, and that's something like, oh, like I will not be that person that is on their phone while driving. Like that's crazy. That's insane.
Did you used to do that?
I used to do that.
Maybe that's why your phone broke.
Maybe.
So, here's one more thing, one less thing to worry about. Pay attention to the road.
And like too, with all of that, all I can think of is like money. Like that's what's been on my mind. Like, how am I gonna pay for this and this? And like my adjuster only offered me like so much money. Like I'm just like so overwhelmed by it. Like, and it's all money, you know. And like that has been one thing that I've constantly like been praying about. Like, may this not be something that controls my life, or like make it feel like this is the end, you know. Like, because I might not be able to pay for this or this, you know. So it's just like letting that be something that doesn't control me, and or like have control over my mind, like. And
yeah, that's a high order, isn't it?
And it's so crazy because I mean, like, money does have like some power, you know. So.
It only has power when we give it power, though, right? The money itself has no power whatsoever. You take a $100 bill over to a different country, they're like, what is this? I'll wipe my ass with this thing, right? But when we give it power, you know, and our mind gives it that power, and our society and our collective, you know, we say this piece of paper is worth this, and we need to work 8 hours of backbreaking work in order to get some more of it. Yeah, and asking, please take these burdensome thoughts of money away from me and help me focus on more important things in my life. That's such a wonderful prayer. Not only the piece about, removing something from yourself, right? That is, you're asking God to do this, I call it esoteric surgery. So going inside of you and ripping out this piece of you that you don't like. But it's also asking to replace it, Don't just leave a hole there, but put something back in there that's more productive.
Yeah.
And in psychology, I like to tell a lot of my clients this too, that the language that we use when we talk to ourselves in our mind plays a huge role. So there are two broad ways to go about thinking about positive or negative thoughts in your mind. And one is, if you are focused on a negative thought, your tendency is going to be to manifest that in your life, right? It doesn't matter. Okay, so say you want to quit drinking alcohol. If your thought that you are putting in your mind to quit drinking is don't drink, don't drink, don't drink, the language that you use there when you say don't, that makes the statement negative, right? So then you're still focused on a negative thought, and the subject is still on drinking, the thing that you don't want to be thinking about. You're forcing yourself to think about drinking by saying don't drink, don't drink, don't drink. If you just change the language and implant a different thought in your mind and say instead, focus on things that are healthy for me, or only healthy choices, right? Then the language that you use there is all positive. Right? It's not focused on the thing you don't want to be doing, but it's focused on the things you do want to be doing. So it's important when you're praying or even working with your thoughts, like don't just say, and here I am saying don't, but don't just say, remove this thing from me or take this thing or throw this thought in the trash, but you got to replace it. You got to put something else in there that is positive. And oftentimes using language and just switching the language around can really get the same meaning across, but with so much more power. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And like too, like even with the positive and negative thinking, like I was just like, all these things are happening right now, and I was just like, okay, Rosie, like let's just look at the positives that have happened during this time. Like when I got into my car accident, I was going to meet Mel and Chris and a couple of other people from the gym, and Chris, who you've just had like on your podcast, he like tells me like, hey, like do you need me to like come and stay with you over there, while you're like waiting? And I was just like, I told them no to go on, but like even to like me being in my car accident and telling them, hey, you guys should just go without me, he offered to be there with me and like support me in that time, and so it's just like I was thankful that I have friends that would do that for me. And so like really just thinking of that. And like even with my phone, like my friend was she was helping me open the door for me, because my hands were completely full, and that's why I dropped my phone. But like she held the door for me, and like we were all like even there and like had a laugh about it, like so just like wanting to look at the positive moments in those times instead of just focusing on the negative.
Yeah, where do you place your attention? And that's a choice.
Yeah.
Are you putting your attention on the negative or the positive? And so for some people, for a lot of people, I wouldn't say most, but for a lot of people, their automatic focus and attention is on the negative. And that's not necessarily your fault. It's just because that's how we were conditioned growing up, a lot of fear responses, a lot of trauma, a lot of things not going well tends to produce memories, even back from when we're babies, and we're not even aware of the pattern that we have of focusing on the negative until we start to pay attention. And that's really where like meditation and prayer come in, is you're paying attention more to what's going on up there, and you can't change anything unless you can hear the voices in your head, the conversations going on. You can't insert yourself into that conversation and take that control back.
And so that has been something that's been really nice for me, like even though this is all still like it's still going on with like the car, and so I'm just like trying to be as like positive as possible, like even to like taking today to like not have to deal with any of that, any of the car issues or my phone or anything like that. I was just like, I'm gonna spend time with my friends, and I'm gonna just think of this for now. Like, think of this, I can come back to that, but right now I need to take a step back, and I just need to be in a positive mindset and like around good people, who love me. And so I was just like, I'm taking a day off.
But I keep hearing, and some people may hear that and be like, well, you're being lazy, get back on fixing your problem. But to me, I hear a lot of acceptance. You accept that this is what's going on right now. All these things went wrong recently, and or wrong in quotation marks, right? All these things happened to you, but you're staying focused on moving forward on what's the next thing. You're not staying stuck in that. There's a lot of acceptance to that, and through acceptance, I think it lessens the negative emotion, right? The anger, the being frustrated that your phone is broken, right? You're just like, it's broken. Now what do I do with my time that I don't have this, right? The same thing happened to me when I first tore my knee in 2007. Like, I was so angry at myself, at the situation, the fact that I couldn't be training. I was just so pissed off about it all. But later I learned that it was because of that I freed up a ton of energy for me to focus on relationship building and my schoolwork and my dog and all these different things that I've been neglecting. Right? So when your phone breaks like that, and you're now not able to spend the energy and the time that you would on your phone, now it's like, okay, what's available to you, and then you're taking advantage of that. That's great.
Yesterday I spent the day cleaning my room and like taking out things out of my closet that I don't like wear anymore, and I'm just like packing all that stuff up to like go donate it. And I'm just like, this was like something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time and just hadn't done it because whenever I was home I was just on my phone, so I was just like, I was very productive without it.
Nice.
So, and also too, just having a clean space and like decluttering is something that's so good for me, because I know I feel like stressed out, and I feel like it's all so much, and I can't be at peace in my own home, like when this is all like packed up or like messy. And so that was one thing that was just like, I'm making a peaceful place for myself right now.
That sanctuary is so important. When you don't have that and you go home and it's chaos at home, how are you going to escape the chaos of the world? If you don't have peace at home, that's tough. Or if you if you don't have it at home, at least find some place to go. Sometimes the gym is that place for me, or someplace up in the mountains. It'll just be that peaceful space for me. So I think that's a good place for us to take a quick commercial break. But we'll be right back for segment number 2. All right, folks, we're back for segment number 2 with Rosie. So I wanted to get right into something that you had mentioned before the podcast. You were talking about how your faith, your particular brand of spirituality, is not so much grounded in texts or in teachings, but is more grounded in what you like to call the relationship you have with God. And I want to ask the listeners as well to kind of drop your personal biases, your defenses that I know you feel coming up when I mention the word God, and throughout this part of the discussion, if it helps, just replace the word God in your mind with I might suggest using the word mind or the word consciousness. That's how I view God anyway, is more like this interconnectedness we all come from and we all return to. So for you listeners out there, drop your presuppositions a little bit and just try and flavor it in your own way, so that you can get the So tell me about your relationship with God and what that means to you.
Yeah, so there was just like I grew up in a Pentecostal Christian church, and was just I know that the Christian community just has this negative connotation to it, and so that was something I wanted to separate myself from, because I seemed so much just so much stuff that shouldn't apply. I'm just Jesus did not live like this, hate and just judgment.
You saw that within the church.
Yeah, and so even just to the church and social media and everything, and that's just something I don't want to associate myself with, because what I view of the Lord and Jesus is just this person who went out and talked to the prostitute and still loved her and did not judge her, and told and I just think about this woman who she had a husband and she was sleeping with other men, and she gets thrown into this middle of these people throw her in front of Jesus, this woman, she's an adulteress, she's been sleeping with all these people and all this. Yeah, bare naked too, I think she had maybe a cloth trying to cover herself, and they were just what are you gonna do about it, and he comes down and he starts writing something in the sand, and a lot of people like to make assumptions on what he might have been doing. I like to think that maybe he was once he started doing that, everybody had eyes on him. And so this woman who's half naked out there, she had this time where they weren't all focused on her. He was having them look at her, so they look at him, sorry, so she wouldn't feel so uncomfortable. And he just tells them these people were ready to stone her. They're anybody feel free to throw a stone if you have never sinned. And no one threw a single stone, so I just think of Jesus being this super just loving person. I would rather just have a relationship with this person. He is real to me, and so I didn't want there to be this thing in between us. And even too, he says that Jesus hated religion, and so that was just one thing. I really just wanted to separate myself from that, and because also because everything that the Christian community believes in is not something that I feel I do. Even too homosexuality, like I don't feel like someone is gonna go to hell for being for loving someone of their same gender. That's not something that I believe in, and so I really just like made this like my own, and like I know a lot of people that call it a relationship, you know, and like have set themselves apart, and so
so what does that relationship look like? Because I mean, you definitely feel things and you connect in different ways, but it's not the same as like a relationship that you have with like a significant other or a sibling or a parent. So what does the relationship look like to you?
my relationship with him is like he's my father, like and like he is like constantly looking out for me, and he gives me this love that I like.
He's your literal father, or he's
no,
like your,
not my literal father,
cosmic father?
Yeah, you could say it
yeah,
like
that's
that.
that's
yeah.
kind of cool. I'm gonna coin that. Make it shirt.
Cosmic father. And so like
sorry, I took you off here.
No, you're all good, but like he fills this void in me that can't be filled anywhere else, and like gives me this love that is so unconditional that I don't like need anything else. Like I don't need like love from a romantic other to feel complete, or love from friends to feel complete, because with his love I'm complete, and I don't have to go out and search for these things that like might never be tangible with like other people, but like I have them, and like that helps me just be like a whole person. Like I like I don't need to find happiness in other people, because I already have it with like my Lord, you know.
What you just said just blew my mind. You know, because I grew up around Christian and Catholic folks, and but it was never like pushed on me. We were forced to in military school. They made us go sing in church. But you know, this when you talk about relationship, and him being your father, like your cosmic father, that just hit me really hard. In that, you know, I thought that all these people were taking the Bible completely literally, and they thought that Jesus was their, you know, literal father, that they were all birthed from some Jesus seed. But the way you put it, that it's just like, no, father's love for his kid, that is, you know, maybe not using human models is for that is the best, but like an ideal father's love for his kid, it's unconditional. Like, it doesn't matter how bad you mess up, I'm still going to be here for you, I'm still going to support you, hold you, and love you, and you can never do wrong in my eyes. You know, that makes a lot of sense when it's put that way, and that, you know, that connects me with exactly what my own experience is with my higher power. And to me, you know, God is not a single person or anything. It's more just, it's just like, you know, all of existence, everything that exists, everything that is between spaces. You know, we all have, you know, these train of thoughts that go in our mind, right? But there's always a space in between each thought. That's where God lives, right? That's like where our true highest self is. And that's what we need to be paying attention to, is those silences, those in-betweens, those connections. And so for me, like, relationship with I feel the same feeling you feel, you know, that as long as I'm connected to that source energy, I can't be hurt. You know? This physical body could die, but you can't hurt my soul, you can't hurt my spirit. I don't need anyone or anything else to be whole. You know, I'm whole within myself, and then the relationships that I do have are bonuses. You know, they're add-ons. Then I'm no longer seeking to fill that hole with alcohol and drugs and people and sex and all these things, because it's already filled. You know, now everything is added on top. So I totally connect in the same way. That's crazy. You the way you described it just hit me like that.
And like too, like I just find like spirituality between like so many different religions to be so simple. just like
the messages are almost identical. Yeah. But the stories are different.
And like I feel like I can never be like I can't say that someone else's God isn't real or someone else's whatever they believe in isn't real, because like that would be I would be a hypocrite. Like just like, and so much like hate and violence has come from all of that, you know. And so I just like, I really is just like, because I mean I don't like feel like I believe either that their God isn't real, like at all, like. And so I just have what I believe in, like this is what is real to me. And so I really just like strive to be a person that is so accepting and non-judgmental and just loving, like to all, and like being open-minded to everybody's like where they come from and what they believe in.
Yeah, it's everyone's individual relationship to their own God. Whatever makes sense to you and fills that spot in you and makes you whole, that's what's important. You know, it's not important that you follow somebody else's path or someone else's, you know, text or step-by-step process to get there, right? It may be something that you can use, but don't give up your own free thinking and your own free. You know, the relationship that you mentioned too, relationships are not always good relationships. And so I want the listeners out there to know too that, yeah, I understand sometimes we get in a bad relationship or a negative relationship with a higher power or a concept of God. For me, I was in that negative relationship to start. You know, I saw those patterns in the church when I was really little, and I didn't want to be a part of it, so I rebelled against it. And then, you know, I found a healthy relationship with my spirituality afterwards. I feel like, you know, I watched other people have healthy relationships with their spirituality, and then something bad happens to them, and then they blame God, or they say, you know, how could this happen to me? How could this ultimate being full of love? Higher power becomes toxic, and they take no personal responsibility and no acceptance, and no responsibility for your own healing. You know, because without any work, you got to put in some work yourself. But I just think that's interesting, how the relationship can not always be good, and I'm sure you see that. Some people either have a purely negative, warring, battling relationship with God, or kind of can use they can use God as an excuse, right? Like, oh, I can do this thing to this person because I'll be forgiven anyway. Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you see people have negative relationships?
I don't know. I feel like I've seen people like gain those negative relationships because of what sometimes the church might have like done to them. And
because of what the humans in the church have done,
And so I feel like I've seen it in that way, and so like they take from that and they feel like the Lord isn't for them because of like his people aren't doing what he like they're supposed to be doing, or they're treating me this way, and so I don't want to follow a Lord that does that treats his people like this. And so I feel like I've seen people like step away because of like other people in the church.
Yeah, that's really sucky, you know, because the human aspect of religion and what it's really all about, you know, are two separate things, but people like pair them together, like the bishops and, you know, priests, they're supposed to be agents of God, right? But they're not God.
No.
You know, but people intermix the two, and they're like, whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do it. You know, say my Hail Marys and do, you know, repent and, you know, punish myself for these things. Separating the two and just being like, you know, those people are fallible. They hurt me. But my higher power is always there for me and always, you know, only has love for me. You know, I sometimes think, you know, because I have someone really significant to me who is going through a really tough time, and she frequently blames God for where she's in her life. She's like, God forced the trauma on me when I was young. God made me an alcoholic. You know, God is making me suffer, and it's really hard for me to sit there and accept that. Number one, because I believe that, you know, the universe or God or whatever is pure love. You know, that's what it's made out of. That's the energy that it is.
Yeah.
And even if it seems like it's doing it out of love for some later outcome, right? Like we were talking about before, like you break your phone, you could say like, oh my God, how dare you, you know? But really, it happened for your benefit, whether you know it now or whether you figure it out later. It's all because God loves you. You know, God puts challenges in front of you because it loves you. You know, it makes you hit that red light, every red light till you get to work, because it loves you and it didn't want you to get in a wreck that you were going to get in if you would have hit the green light. So having that faith that, you know, humans are fallible and they will wrong us, and that is human nature, but beyond human, that God, that energy or whatever is never there to hurt you. You know, it's never there for your benefit.
Oh, I definitely believe that. Pain, like that's never something.
That's what the Buddha said. He
really?
said, suffering. We are the cause of our own suffering. There's a way out of suffering. Here's the way out of suffering. So that was his 4 main tenets. But pretty much saying like, whatever happens to you doesn't have any quality of good or bad except for what you assign to it. So as soon as you say this thing that happened to me is bad, now you're causing yourself suffering by thinking about it in that way.
It's all how we react to it.
Right, and your perception.
And like too, I just think about like a situation where like me and a couple of the other girls were like this for like Courtney's fight, and like we ended up like leaving like earlier we had planned to, and it was just like there was like a snowstorm that was happening, and so we all ended up like getting in the car and like we left, and like we were all super miserable because it's like 4 a.m. in the morning, and like we decided to leave earlier, and so we go, and like not so long later, like I guess a bit behind us, a horrible like wreck ended up happening. Like this semi ended up like turning over on its side. It was so snowy that you could barely see like 5 feet in front of you, and so all of these people just kept hitting into this, and so it was a non-stop like car accident after car accident after car accident after car accident, and none of these poor people could even see like it coming at all because of the snowstorm. And so like if we had enough left earlier, and like I know I didn't want to leave earlier, I was just like, oh, this is like miserable, like I've only had like 2 hours of sleep, and it's just like yes, I was just like, oh, I wish we could have left later. I'm glad I did not leave later, you know? And so even though I was feeling really bad at that time, you know, and like I can't sleep in cars, like it's really hard for me, so like I knew I wasn't gonna get any sleep, you know? And so that was one thing also. And so it's just like there was a reason for us to leave earlier. Like if we hadn't, like we would have been caught in that horrible accident. And so
I think we all have moments like that. If we think about it, you know, what is that? Yeah. Why were we chosen to take that different path that day?
And like even though at the time the way I reacted to it was just like, oh, like really just like I don't want to be up this early, like I'm so miserable. And then hearing what happened, I was just super just grateful. I was like, oh my God, like I don't care that I got up early, I don't care that I've only had 2 hours sleep, I couldn't sleep in the car, like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for making me tired.
I don't care for this because I had to do this, it's an 8-hour drive to Kansas. But I was just, very much, like, thankful, like, but no, like, we teach this, like, thing called Discovery. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. Like, it's by this, we take a lot from, like, the main philosophers, and this guy Eric Berne, like, developed it to use in a school environment, and so we call it Discovery, and we use it at our school, and it's a lot about, like, owning your own shit, and, like, how you react to things, like, and just, like, how to be, like group dynamics and the way you speak to people. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of, like, the different type of modes of speaking to people, like parent, adult, and child. And so Eric Burns, like, further developed it into, like, critical parent, nurturing parent, adult, okay child, and not okay child. And so a lot of times, like, these are ways that we're reacting. So critical parent is like, hey, you shouldn't have done that, or like very just like
punishing,
and it's they're focused on someone else. And a nurturing parent, they're focused on someone else, but they're very much like, oh, it's okay, like
mistakes.
And okay child is like just someone that like craves fun, and like they think only of themselves. And not okay child is they also think of themselves, but it's very much like nothing they do is their fault, and they're very manipulative. And adult is this mode in between all of these modes, where you are like direct and understanding and empathetic, and like we teach this model to the students to like, hey, like be aware of what mode you are in, and like sure, like some of these modes, other modes, like all of the modes have like a light side and a shadow side. So like a critical parent, like if your child is running down the street and there's cars coming, like you're not gonna be like, oh honey, there's cars coming, hurry up, come back to the sidewalk. You're gonna be like, get out of the road, like there's a car. That's where critical parent comes in, and like
that's the good side of
that's the good side. The bad side is like, hey, you're screw up, like all of this, and
you're a terrible kid.
And just very blaming. And like nurturing is like the light side of it is just like your child is hurt, and like of course you're gonna like take care of your child, you're gonna let them know that it's okay. The dark side of it is like they did something wrong and you don't ever address that. You know, you're like, oh, it's okay, he didn't mean to do it, you know. And like, okay child, like they crave fun, they only want to do their pleasure seeking. So like what they can say like, oh hey, let's go ditch school right now, that would be so fun. Or also like they're very like friendly, and they love others. And not okay child, I don't know if there's ever a light side for not okay child, because they're very just like mopey, and I guess that's the side where like it's okay to be sad, you know?
It's okay to feel those.
And so that would be the light side of it, but also they can be very whiny. But like we teach this model to the students, and like with like the main thing is that we teach them how they react to certain situations. And so like you can choose to either like accept that this has happened, or you can say, or you can be like, oh no, this isn't my fault, or this isn't whatever, like but yeah, we teach kids how to like own what they've done, and like positive ways to react to things. And just like even too, like we do this anger sequence where like looking out for like cues on why you might be angry. We let them know that anger is a secondary emotion. So like if you're angry, look at what emotion you were feeling before you got angry, what led to that anger, and just like to look out for cues on like if you're like bunching up your hands or like grinding your teeth, you're probably starting to get angry, and like taking a moment to like hey, like so like if you're feeling this way, like take a moment to be like, hey, like I can't talk to you right now, let me go calm down, and then we'll continue this conversation. And like even to like having a conversation with someone, like even when it might be like to having confrontation, like speaking it to someone in a proper way to like confrontate about something that might not be going well between you two.
Right, like there's positive confrontation and negative confrontations, right? You can have a positive confrontation in that, yeah, you could be angry in a conversation with someone, but you don't have to be abusive.
Yeah.
You don't have to be throwing and hitting things. You don't have to be yelling and screaming, but you can still feel that anger and have a constructive conversation where a solution comes out of it. Whereas the other way, like it's just two emotions fighting each other and there's no solution.
Yep.
It's cool that you mentioned you teach these kids how to own what their behaviors are. Right? It's difficult to teach adults to own their own side of the story. How do you teach kids to do that when, if they do own it, then there's a potential for punishment? So how do you overcome that? How do you say like, yeah, you may get punished, but it's still in your best interest to tell us the truth? How do you do that?
And it's just like, well, what if this goes on someone else? Like, or what if because you didn't own this, like you are like causing pain for someone else, or like you're not learning anything from it, and it's just like when you get out of here, like this is the way you're gonna like it's gonna be like if you want to be able to like make it well in the adult environment or whatever, like to be able to like interact with other people, like it's just like you have to be able to take your own shit because no one else is going to take that for you.
Right.
And so just really like letting them know like sure it's not always going to be okay, but you have to be okay with that because that's kind of like how the world is. So just like giving you heads up, but also like giving you the proper like tools to like when you go into that, like you can settle it like calmly and like direct and just like where this might not end up being something bigger, you know?
So when you're teaching these kids these models, is the author of the model trying to get people to go more towards like the adult way, so the middle way?
Yeah.
That's so cool. So the Buddha taught a lot about how we should never be living in extremes. There's always a middle path, and he called it the middle way.
Really?
Yeah, that it's a combination of both. That it's not black or white. It's a whole bunch of different grays in between, and nothing is like that. And there's always a middle way. Wherever we're confronted with like a choice, it's not ever just one choice or the other. You have to look deeper. Usually another choice in between the two choices that you outline for yourself that are complementary of each other. So you're talking about how to teach kids how to own their shit, and as you're talking, I'm reminded your model that you use is so way that it was taught to me, because in military school, how we were taught to own our shit was like if you messed up and no one fessed up to it, then the whole group suffers, right? So if one kid like didn't do his chore and the platoon commander was like, okay, who the hell did this or didn't do this thing, and no one said anything, then all 300 people are going to be in push-up position for like an hour or be punished. And then from that, there's like internal correction systems, and I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, but if one person didn't fess up to it and the whole group had to suffer because of it, the group then was like, okay, we have to figure out who the hell did this, right? And then once they figure it out, then the whole group punishes that one person for not owning up to it. So that's how that person comes to learn that, hey, it's better if I just take the heat and take the punishment from one person, because it's much better than taking the punishment from 300 people. And that would happen a lot. Unfortunately, there was hazing and all sorts of things, like kids getting strapped to mattresses naked and dragged through the showers while they're getting beat by soap, bars of soap and stuff. Like, it gets really abusive and really harmful. But that was part of when I learned, that's like my first real lesson in how to own my shit. And then I got another lesson too when I got sober, and through my recovery process through AA and the 12 steps. Like, a lot of those steps have to do with writing down every single thing you've ever done wrong in your entire life, every negative thought that you can remember having about any person, every stick of gum you ever stole, every door you didn't hold open, that you can remember, everything bad you ever did, and then telling someone about it. Right? That in the recovery process, that's part of owning all your shit. And once you've owned it and accepted it and shared it with someone else, and that person still accepts you and still says, hey, I've done shit like that too, I'm a sinner too, then all of a sudden it becomes easier to start owning other things as they come up, because then you're like, okay, like, I just cleared the slate there, all the shit that I did, I owned it all, and I can do this, and then new things come about, and you just own it as they come. I think that's cool. So different people learn different ways. I'm kind of jealous of some people who, from a very young age, their parents taught them properly, like, don't lie, tell the truth, and they did that. Right? My mom tried to teach me that, but I was too smart for my own good. I could always figure out how to get away with something, But owning it is so powerful, and it's scary too. So I hope that the listeners out there are getting something from what we're saying, in that owning it really has, even though it's scary and there's the potential for the respect you get from others from fessing up to it and taking the blame on yourself, if it's appropriate, I think is so much greater than any punishment that could come from it.
I think so too.
Yeah, owning up to things, it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. I just, like, there was a time where, like, the instinct for me was, like, to run away, and, like,
to avoid the punishment?
Yeah. And so, no, I definitely just, like, even too with this, like, whole model, like, learning this, like, it's, like, just changed, like, how I am, I feel like, in my relationships, and just being more of a listener, and, like really, like, even with the adult mode, it's like you're slow to speak, you're what is it, quick to listen and slow to speak. And so, like, that's one thing too, like, the Bible teaches us, but, like, the adult mode is just, like, it goes over all of this, and just, like, I think too with just, like, I even wanted to bring this up with my family too, like, just, like, on the way we communicate with each other, I feel, and there's this adult way, like, you don't have to, like, go into these, like, I just think about, like, my brother, like, when he does things wrong, he doesn't own it, he really doesn't own it, and it's a lot of not okay child mode, and it's just, like, that frustrates me so much, and it's just like, we need to learn this, like, adult way of speaking. And so it's definitely, like, taught me some things too, and so I have just been like, yes, like, I'm 100 for this, like, for discovery, and just, like, I feel like it's so important for, like, our young people to, like, learn this, and, like, too, like, if you're a student at the school that I work at, you're not allowed to graduate unless you pass the discovery class. So if you fail it, you got to take it again.
So I think that's so amazing. I think that's something that's lost in a lot of public schools, is teaching kids the social aspect of intelligence. I was just reading this article about how each human contains a variety of different intelligences, but we only, when we think about the word intelligence, we only think about our intellect.
Yeah.
But there's social intelligence, there's emotional intelligence, there's cognitive, intellectual intelligence, all these things, and they're all within all of us. But in public schools, they focus on just the mental, cognitive intelligence, and expect kids to get a social education just through their interactions with others. And for a lot of kids, that's not a good education. There's bullying, there's all sorts of social pressures and things. I feel, when I went to college at CU Boulder and now at CSU, like half of the education that I'm getting there is from other people, being around other people, hearing what they have to say, talking to other people. Half of it is from the books, but half of it is from the social piece. I learned how to be by being at school, but it was not explicitly taught. I had to seek out, classes on how to, social conflict resolution and stuff like that I would get into in high school. Our kids these days that they don't get on, what are your emotions? How do you deal with your emotions? How do you understand that other people have a different perspective and different emotions and different feelings and all these things? Something that should be done in all schools.
I believe so.
From middle school, elementary school, they should be doing that. And how much more productive citizens, balanced and whole citizens can we produce if they had that essential knowledge?
Like, I feel like it's so helpful. With it, I've seen like a lot of change even like in students. They were like stinkers in this first quarter or this first year, and then they come back and they're like totally different people. They're like, even too like we all go by our first names. All of the staff goes by their first names.
That's great.
Yeah, and so like it's just like this like I will respect you and like I expect the same respect, and it's just like not creating like a level of like they're above you, like we're on the same level right here, I'm not gonna speak above you, so like go ahead and call me by my first name. Like also like they build such good relationships there too, like that's one of our goals, to build relationships with our students, and be people that they can trust. And it's just like it's so different than anything I've ever seen. And so like and the students want to be better because they have relationships with those teachers, and they're like, I want to do good by you, and it's something like so beautiful. Like I wish I would have been in that environment when I was in school, because I wasn't a very good student. Like I didn't really build relationships with teachers, and that was one thing that I'd always wanted, because I'd seen other students like they had good relationships with the teacher, but I didn't. And like one thing that held me back was because of my grades. Like I felt like I couldn't build that relationship with them because of like the way I was doing in their class. And so obviously they were like disappointed in me, or like they felt like I didn't care or anything like that. So
but really they probably just wanted you to come in there and ask them the questions. They probably saw you were struggling, wanted help.
Yeah, and so like too, like we make sure to like be that person like in the school, to like make sure that we're trying to go after every student. Like even too recently we like did this whole we like put up pictures of all of our students in the school, and like we all put our on the students we have relationships with, and like we're just like, okay, so these students that don't have like any names on them, let's go after those kids, or like even too like with the students that we do have relationships with, let's spend some time, like a minute, like greeting them, like or a minute or two greeting them when they come in, like having conversation, like letting it not just be surface level, you know. And so like very much like wanting to again be those like positive adult figures in their lives.
Yeah, and your own experience of not being able to connect with teachers when you were younger probably informs how you go about connecting with others too. Like you want to be that person that you didn't have when you were younger. Yeah, that's a big driver for me in being a therapist. Is like I want to be that listening ear, that non-judgmental ear for someone that I didn't get as a kid, as someone coming up. But you talked a little bit about how some of these kids, they want to do good because they, initially wanted to. It reminds me of, our black belt Professor Z at the gym, and how all of us, I don't know a single student in that place that doesn't want to make Z proud of us, So that's what came to my mind right away, and it's been so great having you train with us, because I know you trained out in Greeley for a number of years.
Yeah, too.
Before you came to us, and so I was wondering if we can switch gears a little bit to some lighter material. I'd love to hear your story, and like how did you even get started in Jiu-Jitsu, and how did you get to where you are now with it?
So, I mean, I had always been, like, interested in, like, martial arts. I, like, grew up, like, watching, like, Bruce Lee movies and just Kung Fu movies. And Bruce Lee
we
right
got
there.
Bruce Lee right there. That's my favorite picture of him. He
I
looks like
love that photo.
Such a badass with his
Mustache, yes.
Yeah.
But, like, really, like, this was just something that I had always, like, even, like, had, me and my dad's thing, and so like watching these kung fu movies or like anything, and so like this was something I'd always been interested in, and I know I haven't gotten to kung fu, but like this is so much better than kung fu, I feel. I think I would still like to learn kung fu, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I wasn't actively going after it when I first got into it. Avery and Jake, I think you've had them on. I was friends with Avery and Jake, and she was just like, hey, like, we started a gym, like, you should come. And I was like, huh, that would be really cool. Like, that's something I've always wanted to do. And so, like, it was just like, I had this relationship with these people, and I wanted to be where they were. And also, this was something that I'd always been interested in, because, like, even with just, like, I'd always wanted to take up kickboxing, but one thing my dad always told me was like, oh no, you're gonna ruin your face, you're gonna ruin your beautiful face. And I was just like, I don't care about that. And so,
you should tell him who like Mackenzie Dern and Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano are. Like, they didn't ruin their faces.
No, they're still beautiful.
They're on the cover of magazines.
Yes, and so like, I just like went. I like didn't even really think about it. It was just like there, and like immediately like fell in love with just jiu-jitsu, like period. I was training in also like MMA and boxing and kickboxing and Muay Thai and all of that, and what really like captured me the most was probably Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
What was it about it? Because I started out too with a mix of Sambo, MMA, and Jiu-Jitsu all at one time while I was doing Krav Maga, and but Jiu-Jitsu for me, drew me in more.
Oh my god, I feel like a lot of the community, like, wow, the community is so great, and that's one thing that drawed me into it. But also, like, this is, like, something so different from all, like, other, like, forms. Like, there's just something about being able to manipulate someone's body, like, or like, even being, like, it's the sport for the smaller man, like it's okay. Like, it's okay if I'm a smaller meek girl, like I can still like overpower someone bigger than me, and that's like something that really like touched me also, because like too, like at the time when I was first started training, I was working at a movie theater, and like I would be there really, really late, like past midnight, and like I would have to go walk out to my car, and like I'd have to go behind these dumpsters, and then like finally go out to the lot, and that was something that I was afraid for a long time of, like being out in the night, and like even just like the night itself. So like I had this constant fear that someone was gonna breaking into my room, or like someone was gonna try to kidnap me or anything like that. And jiu-jitsu, I feel like, especially gives me the sense of like security and safety.
That's invaluable. You can't put a price on feeling safe and secure, especially as a woman too. Yeah, I like what you said about being able to control somebody else. Because if you think about it, and I did striking arts for, I even found jiu-jitsu, and if you think about it, like you can get as good as you can possibly be at a striking art like Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Karate, whatever, Kung Fu, but you still don't necessarily have control over your opponent's attacks, right? They're still in control over them, and there's always, when they're in control of themselves, there's always a possibility that you could get hurt, you could get hit, or taken down, or whatever. But with jiu-jitsu, what makes it different is that you have control over yourself, but the techniques are meant to control them, right? So if you're worried that an attacker is bigger than you and he's going to come full force striking, kicking, and punching at you, you don't want to meet him with the same techniques, right? Because he has striking and punching and kicking at his disposal. Take him to the ground and control his limbs, so you are in control of his arms, or you are in control of his legs. So then that takes away his ability to attack you in that way. It's not about doing damage to someone as much as it is about preventing them from doing damage to you. That's what jiu-jitsu is all about. That's why it's called the gentle art. I mean, if necessary, we can take way more damage to someone's body than you could do in striking. But it teaches you the restraint as well. Like, hey, my job is to just prevent you from punching and kicking me. I can get the police here to handcuff you, or get somebody else to hold you down,
I don't know if you ever watched that one video of this guy, and like I guess there was like this mugger, and he broke into like his mom's like house. And so like this guy, he trained in jiu-jitsu, he caught him and like held him in like a triangle, like I think he was on top of him. He was like and like held him there until the cops came, and this guy like was completely immobile, like he was kind of being half choked, and he's just like not wanting to do anything. And so like that was just like too, like wow, like, and that guy had like no damage on him, like at all.
You didn't have to knock him out or shoot him or incapacitate him.
He's totally fine, but he's being able to just like be there, and like it's an uncomfortable position, but like that's the only way like you're really gonna like stay there, And so that was something really cool. Like he held him there until the police came. He didn't do any like sort of damage on him at all.
So then you've been doing jiu-jitsu now for 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've competed, right?
Yeah, I have competed.
That's right. How do you like it?
I get so anxious whenever I compete.
Because you competed at the Jiu-Jitsu club.
Yeah.
Right? Recently. Yeah.
And so
you got a gold medal.
I did. Yeah. I got a first place medal.
Awesome.
And with competing, I have like a love-hate relationship with it.
Me too.
I get so anxious, like the type of anxious where like I feel like throwing up, or like I really like crazy, like just how my mind runs, and like I start to like everything's pounding in my body, and like I feel like I deal with a lot of like imposter syndrome, like with a lot of it, like I feel like I have to win whenever I go into a match, like I have to win or I'm gonna let all these people down, or like I feel like I'm not good enough to win, and like I just constantly have this like negative mindset whenever I go into a match, which is like
That's like the worst thing you can do
the
to yourself.
The worst.
Yeah.
And I think
That's totally normal too.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason why I never did like any sort of striking, because I was just like about it. Like I was just like I'm afraid to lose, you know, because they put you on a bigger stage and
there's more eyes on you.
There's more eyes on you, and that was something really kind of nerve-wracking for me. And I feel like that's one thing that stopped me. Also with like people dropping out and injuries and all that, and but like really like I felt like I wasn't like good enough to win a lot of times, you know, and that's just so crazy because like I see myself in practice and like I'm good, you know, I'm good, and but I feel like I can't translate that onto in a competition, like, which is, I don't know, it's irrational, and like I just can't help but feel like anxious about all of it, and like I that's what stops me a lot of times from competing, is because I'm so anxious. And
yeah, and this is something I work with a lot in my private practice, because my background in sports psychology, so I work a lot with athletes, and how do you make that transition? Most of it is mental, right? Your physical preparation is on par, right? You know from the work that you put in the gym if you're ready physically or not, cardio and strength and technique wise. But the mind, even if you're totally ready, your mind will make it bring that ability to bear on the mat, right? And that's what you're finding. So yeah, in my practice I deal with this a lot with people, and there's all sorts of different strategies to help overcome that mental battle in your mind. One of the ones that I use the most, or suggest the most, is first people on what anxiety is to them. Like what does it feel like to you, right? Flushing of the face, sweaty palms, jitteriness, rapid thoughts, you know, a rapid heart rate. These all come with anxiety. So first I have someone, okay, check in with yourself. What does it feel like to feel anxious? Are you going to be able to recognize that when it happens again in the future? And they say, yes, 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 of course. I know exactly what my anxiety feels like. I'm like, okay, good. So then I have them describe what does excitement feel like to you? And oftentimes it's a lot of the same symptoms: racing heart rate, racing thoughts, tingling in the body, you know, butterflies in the stomach, some sweatiness. So excitement and anxiety in the body feel very similar. But the thoughts that go along with the two are totally different, right? Anxiety thoughts are more self-judgment, self-criticisms, projections, imposter syndrome thoughts, things like that. Whereas excitement thoughts are like, yeah, like I'm connected, I want to be here, this is going to be amazing, right? So in the body, they feel the same, and you can connect with it that way. Then could it be possible that you just convince yourself that what you're feeling in the moment is not anxiety, but is instead excitement, right? Because you know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
You can't change what you're feeling, but you can change how you think about what you're feeling. Does that make sense? It doesn't work every time, and it takes practice to be able to turn that anxiety into excitement, but I've found it to be pretty useful. And for me, I experience the imposter syndrome too, but in a different way. When I compete, I know that I belong there, because I can readily bring up memory of, you know, the decades and all the stuff that I put myself through, all the battles, internally and externally, that I've had. And so I know I belong there. But my imposter syndrome comes in, and it's more like, you know, am I in this and to get accolade from other people, or am I here to just have fun? You know, and for me, that's a really easy question to answer. I'm doing this because I enjoy it. The medals and stuff are great, but I do this because it's a pure joy. Either in a tournament or a pro match, sometimes that works against me because I'm just there to have fun, you know, and enjoy every moment. And my opponent may be there like bloodthirsty for a win, you know, and so he might have an advantage over that. Like he may want it more. I'm willing to accept that now. I don't care whether I win or lose. Winning is great. It's fun, but it's about the experience for me. You know, it's about what am I going to learn from this? What sort of inner battle am I going to face on that mat? Whatever it is, it's for my benefit, and I'm going to come out stronger. So the imposter syndrome still shows up for me, but in a different way. So go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good.
Oh, so with Jiu-Jitsu, you know, you've practitioned for 2 years, but you've started making Jiu-Jitsu more integrated part of your life, and you've become an announcer now for the new Jiu-Jitsu club promotion, Colorado Jiu-Jitsu club that I hope to fight on the pro card someday. I'm sure I will someday. Been good friends with Howie for a long time and trying to get him on this podcast for a long time too. We'll get him on eventually, but it's really cool that you have started branching out and doing these other side projects. So tell me about your experience so far and how you're enjoying it.
Oh, it's something so cool, and all I can think of is like this being something that like opens doors for me. Like I mean, I love the Jiu-Jitsu community.
What kind of doors are you opening?
Maybe for this being something that I do like full time, or like anything, you know. And so like just being able to have my work or what I do for a living be involved with Jiu-Jitsu, which be something so amazing, you know. And so like, because I'm good friends with Kate and Steven, and they were...
Shout out to the Pop Rockies.
Yep, the Pop Rockies. I love you guys. And so I was just really like so honored when they asked me if I wanted to do it, you know, and they told me like, hey, we love you and we love who you are and we'd love to have you on here. And that was something like really so like, wow, like that. I'm glad that you see that in me. I'm so happy that you see that in me, and like I'd love to do it. And so that was just like I feel like really just like touching to me also. But like even too, like while I was there and like I was constantly talking to all of these other people who love Jiu-Jitsu and like they've been doing it for a long time when I was finally doing the interviews, and like we all just like got along, you know, and no sort of like real awkwardness or anything because we had this thing in common, you know. And so, like, that was really just cool, you know? And, like, even, too, I love being around other people that train in Jiu-Jitsu. And, like, I love going to, like, Jiu-Jitsu, like, tournaments or anything. Because those people are going to be around. And so, I'm there and, like, I get to have these conversations with them and hear what they think about Jiu-Jitsu and how it has affected their lives. And so... like that's something so cool. Like really, like I'm so grateful for this opportunity to do their interviews and for them to even want me to like come back and do them again, which is just something so like mind-boggling to me. Or like
you must have heard us all cheering for you.
Oh, that was my favorite part. Every time I'd walk back to like go do the interviews and hearing you guys cheer, like whoa, Rosie, like I was about to go fight, like that was something I really...
The cheers for you were louder than the cheers for the people fighting.
I think so. You just hear like they announced this person, but you guys are over there, yeah, Rosie, you got this. That was something so, and I love that I have you guys and like your guys' like our Z community, and like I feel like this is probably like the most I've like built relationships with other people in like our gym. Like I love spending time with you guys. Like even too, like after this I'm gonna go spend time with other people from our gym, you know, and you guys are all people I love to be around, and so like really like I just love it.
What is it about Jiu-Jitsu people that is different than normal everyday people you meet in your life that you may connect with? Because I feel the same thing. Like I don't even have to know you, but if I find out that you do Jiu-Jitsu, then we're automatically brothers. Yep. Right? Like we have something to bond on. Like you could have totally different political views, religious views. You could be, yeah, totally different than me, but if we both share this thing, then everything else. What for you? What is it about interacting with jiu-jitsu people that makes you like, God, I love this so much?
And I feel like it's because I can connect with all of them because we've all had the same struggles, or like
that we've all been crushed.
Yes. Are nearly broken, and so like we all like understand this like that each other has been putting this hard work into this like sport that can take forever or like a decade to earn a black belt, and we're all just trying to like do our best and like work our hardest, and we give our time to this, so that we can grow and we can become better, and we can one day achieve that black belt, and we all have the same goal, and that's something so like amazing to me. And really, like, I feel like everybody's just so chill and like everybody's so respectful. Like I feel like it's different from other combat sports. Like there's so much respect when someone wins or someone loses, and just like thank you for your time, or thank you for growing, helping me grow as a competitor, and so very just like respectful in that way. But no, I definitely, because like we all just share this same goal, and we all want to grow and become better.
Yeah, we are pretty chill people. All of our frustrations out on the mat and things, but yeah, I think the one thing that draws me to people who practice jiu-jitsu, in just my desire to want to talk to them in general, is the fact that if you're practicing jiu-jitsu and you're active in it, then I know that you're working on yourself. And if you're working on yourself, then we can talk, right? I mean, I just prefer to connect with other people who are, like you said, trying to better themselves, on or off the mat. Like, it's hard for me to sit there and connect with someone who is just okay just being wherever they're at and being stuck. It's one thing to say, like, yeah, I love where I'm at, and I'm glad I'm where I am at, but I'm still trying to grow, I'm still trying to learn, still trying to be better, versus someone who's just like, yeah, I don't want to work on myself, right? Well then, I don't really have much to gain by talking to you, so for me, that's what draws me. I know you're practicing jiu-jitsu, I know you're working on yourself, and when we can connect on
that. I notice that when I'm the least I come to the gym, the more of a sadder or like stressful person I'll be in my everyday life.
Me too, Callie would be like, you need to get to the gym, like, get out of the house, go to the gym.
And it really is, like, it's something that has become something that helps me be a regular, a happy human being, and just like able to like interact with people like on a daily basis and not be super like moody or stressed out and like, or like feel like I'm holding something in, and so like that has just definitely like become a big part of like my everyday like
it's like self-care.
It is self-care, it really is.
Self-care through beating up your body.
Yeah.
It's still so self-care. So yeah, I just want to wrap it up and thank you again for coming on the show. I hope it was fun for you.
Oh, so fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. And I want to give you an opportunity. If you had any parting words, any advice for the listeners, based off of your own experience or just something that you live by that helps you out, that you could offer to the listeners to better themselves, what would something like that be?
Love each other. If you see someone struggling in the same way that you might have, and you've overcome it, like, go and find those people that you can maybe help, and also like find something that you can, that will take you out of your everyday life. Like, we have jiu-jitsu, that will take us out of our norm of working throughout the day and just having this normal routine. But now we have this thing that we love that will help us get through our week. Find something like that, and that'll help you find a community of people who are also like-minded, and then you'll have those people also that you'll have that connection with. But just go out and love people.
That's good. All right, Rosie, thanks for coming on the show, and for you folks, I hope you got something from it. I learned a ton, and yeah, thanks again.
No
Talk
problem.
to you soon.
Yeah.
Conversations with the Mind podcast is sponsored by mindops.com. You can find us at www.mind-ops.com. We're an eclectic counseling company providing mental health and mental performance services to individuals, small and large groups, teams, businesses, military, through face-to-face sessions or at a distance using phone or confidential video chat apps. We bring a unique Buddhist Western lens and specialize in general psychotherapy for all mental difficulties, sport and performance psychology for performance enhancement, addiction counseling for any maladaptive or destructive habits, and psychedelic integration therapy to make the most from your visionary medicine work. We are available as well for corporate workshops to address the needs of your employees' wellness.